Kyle Tucker joins us now from The Athletic at Kyle Tucker _ capital ATH. If you want to follow him for great Kentucky coverage, he's been on the UK beat since 2011, so he can give us some great insight into Chaz Lanier. Kyle, what's the latest you're hearing as Tennessee and Kentucky battle for Lanier?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where it stands. I think they're in a war with each other for arguably the most interesting perimeter player left in the portal. Um, Kentucky has done a pretty impressive job in 1 month under Mark Pope. He had 0 players, uh, 0 for sure commits. He had one recruit, in-state kid who he had to sort of refirm up. But other than that, he had nobody. All of the other recruits, all the 5-star kids went with Cal or elsewhere. When he left for Arkansas, all the players hit the portal or entered the draft. So they were at 0 basically, and now they have 10 guys. They've done a good job of getting obviously experience because you're going in the portal. They've got a mix of big guys and guards. They've got a couple of point guard options. They've got some shooting. I think what they lack is a guy like Chaz Lanier. They need somebody on the wing who can kind of get his own, who's just whether you're running offense for him or you're not, can be a 3-level scorer, be a threat to fill it up on any given night. So they're looking at Chaz Lanier. They're looking at Wooga Poplar from Miami, and obviously Jackson Robinson, who played for Pope at BYU. All sort of fit that bill. I think they hope to get one of them. Robinson, it feels like he may stay in the NBA draft. Wooga's going to have a whole lot of options, as is Chaz Lanier. But the Lanier battle feels like it's coming down the stretch here, and it's one of those two schools for sure. And obviously Pope has not. I think the tea leaves have trended towards Tennessee for a while, but I don't think Pope would have gone up to watch Chaz Lanier at the pre-draft workout stuff if he didn't feel like he had a chance to get him. So has he already taken his Tennessee visit, or is that coming up this weekend?
To my knowledge, he's visited Tennessee. Caleb, can you provide us any background on that?
Looking at it now, my understanding was that he had already taken his visit to Tennessee as well. I thought he took that back in April.
Kyle used a term most intriguing perimeter player.
Yeah.
Why is that? What are his skills that you think that Pope really likes?
For one, it's really interesting. His career arc is really interesting. I mean, he's been at North Florida. He's been in the ASUN, a relatively low level of college basketball, of Division I college basketball. And he wasn't just like a star for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, he averaged like 3 points and then 4 points. And then all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, he's a 20-point-a-game guy this season and really blew up. And so I think in some ways there's intrigue because it's definitely remains a question mark. Like, can he make this big jump to the SEC? Why was he sort of a non-factor for 2 or 3 years and then all of a sudden had this huge year? I think there's some questions, but also there just aren't a lot of guys with that particular skill set. Bigger guards, wings who can score at all 3 levels. Who are good shooters, but he's not going to be just a catch and shoot guy. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Kentucky's looking for is like, they've got shooters. They've got they've got Lamont Butler from the Final Four San Diego State team, who's kind of a bulldog veteran point guard who's going to defend you. Not a great shooter, not a great offensive threat. Kirk Risa, who they got, former Arizona and West Virginia point guard / combo guard, who certainly can set the table for others, and he's a good 3-point shooter. But I wouldn't say, like, if you're just in a gotta go get a bucket scenario, is he necessarily gonna just be able to score at will. They're still looking for that guy, and I think Chaz Lanier fits that bill.
So Kyle, I wanted to ask about Chaz Lanier and the way this works because Kentucky seemed to come into the fold late. Was he intrigued by Kentucky and then Calipari left, so he lost interest, or was there never any interest in Kentucky until Mark Pope decided to go out of his way to go for Chaz Lanier?
I can't say for sure, but I didn't hear any sort of whispers about Chaz Lanier in Kentucky under Calipari. They may have gotten there. I mean, it's hard to say what they would have done if they had stayed, what their needs were going to be, because it all happened very quickly and he was gone. And he's brought some guys with him to Arkansas, and he was able to get some other guys out of the portal. But I think this whole scenario is pretty much played out as a Mark Pope thing. And two, I think it's really interesting, just sort of the way the roster has come together. Like, it's a bunch of really good pieces. Like, I don't know if there's like a superstar on this Kentucky roster, and I'm not sure that Chaz Lanier would necessarily be that superstar. Although, I think people have compared him, as you talk about Tennessee, people have compared him and what, his potential to a Dalton Connect type of guy, a guy coming from a lower level who's a really good scorer, kind of a wired scorer, and blows up with that opportunity. I think both Tennessee and Kentucky are kind of hoping he could be that piece that puts their good rosters over the top to be, great rosters.
So if you had to predict, Kyle, and you're not going to make a great living out of predicting where high school kids or transfers go, but if you had to predict he'll be at Tennessee or Kentucky, what would you predict?
Man, to me, it's a bit of a mystery because I'm not clear because of the fact that Kentucky's, again, they're on Poplar, they're on Robinson, who played for Pope, and they're on Lanier. I think they're hoping to get one of them, like I said, and everything I had gathered up until the last few days was very, very pro Tennessee, and I think I'd probably still maybe predict him to Tennessee, but Kentucky's been pretty good about the guys that they have majorly prioritized. And it's hard to say, that there wouldn't be in this situation if there wasn't a hang up on the asking price in NIL. Like, they were recruiting Great Osabor, and basically during his visit, they took a commitment from another player at that position, who had not even visited. And it seemed odd at the time, but then you kind of realize that during that visit, they recognized it was an asking price that was way too high. And yesterday we find out that Great Osabor is going to Washington, where his former coach is, and the reported deal is $2 million in NIL.
Wow.
And so, for one, does that change all of the available free agents? And I think we should just call them that, right? All the guys in the portal are free agents. Has that reset the market, like, in real time? Like, whatever Chaz Lanier was hoping to get, whatever any of them to get that hadn't picked the school yet, did that number just go up through the roof when they saw that Great Osabor got $2 million from Washington? And scarcity, it's basic supply and demand, right? What things cost, and scarcity drives up cost. And there's not that many program changing players left in the portal. Like, if we get this guy, he changes our fortune in a significant way. And I would say Chaz Lanier, in many people's minds, is on that short list of guys left who can move the needle. So what is his value? And that, therefore, what is his asking price? Has that been updated in this process? And so with that unknown, really, it's hard for me to say. Like, if that number gets crazy high, I think Kentucky would just respectfully back away. I think, when you have to get, they said they're going to fill their roster to 13 by the end of this summer. When you go from 0 to 13, when you've got to add 13 players to a roster, I don't think you can afford to get in the crazy bidding wars. And so if that becomes a factor, then, I don't know what Tennessee's situation is there. What is their salary cap situation right now, so to speak? Because frankly, that's the crazy reality we are living in now in college sports. Like, there's no reason to like talk about it in any delicate terms. Like, this is free agency. Teams are thinking and acting as if they are working with a salary cap or a salary pool. Everybody's kind of going, here's my budget, here's what I have to spend, here are my needs. And so without knowing everybody's war chest, what they've got and what they're willing, what sort of their max that they're willing and comfortable to spend on a guy, it's hard to say. But I'm fascinated. I mean, this could really shift. This one recruitment can really shift, the upper half, the fortunes of the upper half of the SEC. Like this could give Kentucky a chance to be in that upper half. This could, vault Tennessee to, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the SEC in my mind going into the preseason. I love Alabama's roster. I think a lot of people are going to be high on Arkansas's roster because of all the talent Cal has brought in there. But Tennessee's got a chance if they get a Lanier to really, I think, be in contention again, as more often than not been the case under Rick Barnes, to win the SEC.
So
go ahead, Caleb. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Kyle, from a Kentucky perspective, do you feel like Kentucky fans feel a little refreshed that whatever the Mark Pope, John Calipari, all that situation is, that Kentucky is finally like maybe building a roster around guys that aren't just freshmen? For once, a little more experience will be on that roster.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think there's a mix. For some, it's a hard addiction to break. Like the excitement, the thrill, the bragging rights of signing a number 1 or number 2 ranked recruiting class every year. I think obviously people were frustrated with the results, but it's still hard to break that addiction of seeing like your team at the top of the rankings, right? And we've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 McDonald's All-Americans coming in every year. They don't have that now. And that was always going to be the hard part of breaking up with John Calipari. You're going to lose that. Like you're still going to get McDonald's All-Americans if you're Kentucky, but you're not going to sign, 5 of the top 15 players or whatever. But on the flip side of that, I do think that's been hard for people. It's been like weird. It's weird to go from like signing these name brand kids and guys that are definitely going to be future NBA lottery picks to signing a bunch of transfers that are from places maybe you hadn't watched them play, you don't know who they are, or you're getting a mid-major transfer. But there's a trade-off. I mean, inarguably, college basketball has gotten older and more experienced, and the freshman-driven teams have had less and less success, particularly at Kentucky. So, yeah, I do think there is mostly that refreshing feeling for Kentucky fans that, one, they've gotten 2 in-state kids who are dyed-in-the-wool Kentucky kids, grew up with it and want to be there. That excites people, and they feel like those are going to be multi-year developmental guys. And then you go just add all these 20 and 21 and 22 and 23-year-old guys who've played 100 plus. I think they're going to have a half dozen guys who played like 100 college basketball games. That's a huge departure from the way Calipari built rosters. And I do think in that way, people are a little bit relieved. Should be anywhere close to the raw talent level of many of Cal's previous rosters at Kentucky? Probably not. But if they're not going to ever come close to hitting their ceiling while they're with you, right? Those 5-star guys typically don't. Their best years are realized in the NBA. Is it better to have a bunch of guys who are at the peak of what they can do, like 5th-year senior transfers who know exactly how to play college basketball and are kind of maxing out their talent, versus a more talented raw talent guy who's just starting and to figure it out in college? I think we're about to find that out.
Great stuff, Kyle. I really appreciate it. How do we follow your work?
Yeah, it's at the Athletic website and the app, and also on Twitter at @KyleTucker_ATH.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good stuff right there. I love the fact that John Calipari is still in the SEC, and you still get that aspect of it.